I remember opening the door going, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You called the cops?
Because I'm gay.
You called the cops? And that's why the title in the book is called They Called the Cops.
Yeah. You're listening to the Spiritual Shitshow podcast with Suzanne Sole, episode 43. Hello, all you glorious, incredible, fabulous rays of light, and welcome to the Spiritual Shitshow podcast, where we get into the epic thriller, the healing and spiritual awakening journey can be. I'm your host, Suzanne Sole, comedian, lifelong spiritual student, and I'm sharing some of the incredible wonders I've learned along my journey that have helped me, and that I hope help you too. So I am totally delighted because in this episode, I am talking with my fabulous friend and author, Keith Butler. Keith is the author of the book Little Black Gay Boy, an unapologetic memoir of surviving, coming out, and recovering, about a young boy's journey from being raised in poverty by a single mom in a small, conservative community in Virginia. Keith says he wanted to share about the injustices and trauma he suffered as a young black gay boy in the Bible Belt to help others find their voice and confidence to live, as he says, the life God intended them to live. Keith's strong spirit allows him to use his voice to speak up against any and all injustices that plague the black community and the gay community. He says, growing up as a little black gay boy himself, he shares his experiences to let others know they are not alone. Keith is a native of Virginia, where he studied theater, dance, and African American studies at Old Dominion University. He says, I wrote my book to speak to little black gay boys everywhere, but much of the story is universal. My hope is that even if this book is not for you, if you ever have a little black gay boy asking for help, no matter what his age might be now, you will use this as a resource to assure him he is not alone. I am grateful for the part of me that really wanted me to stay alive, even through the darkest times of my life, because my journey was going to help others. Keith is an incredible person, and I am delighted to share our amazing conversation with you. So let's get to this wonderful, real, and heartfelt conversation I had with Keith Butler. Keith, are you there? My darling Keith Butler.
Yes.
Welcome to the Spiritual Shitshow interview shit show. So wonderful to have you.
The title is always so funny to me. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So my dear friend Keith Butler wrote an incredible memoir.
Yes.
Please tell us about it.
It's called Little Black Gay Boy.
That's right.
Yeah. I've always wanted to write a book.
Yes.
And I started that at 18.
So you started this book when you were 18.
Journaling. I started journaling at 18.
You didn't know you were writing a book?
No, but I started journaling because I knew one day I wanted to write a book.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. So at 18, I was like, yeah, I think I want to write a book one day. So I was like, I should start journaling. Yes. So I started journaling at 18. Mm-hmm. And I kept, journals for a long time. And then a couple of times my journal got read. Yeah.
You share that in the book.
Yeah. So because it got read, I was just like, you know what? This is no longer mine.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit about that experience?
Yeah. So the first time it got read, I was dating somebody and he read it.
The
person I was dating. The boyfriend I was dating. Yeah. He read it. And we had an argument about some stuff that was in it. And then the next time that somebody read it was my uncle. Yes. He read it. And I was like, I don't think this is mine anymore. And then I know, when actually the boyfriend wasn't the first time. My mom and them were the first time.
I was going to say, I remember this.
They were the first time that they read it because they pushed me out of the closet when they read it.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. Let's back up just a minute because I'm kind of pushing forward too. So you were growing up and you knew you were gay.
I knew. Yeah. At 10 years old, I knew there was something different about me. I didn't know what to call it.
You just felt.
Right.
Yeah.
I just knew that I was different. Like I was watching The Young and the Restless, and Brad on The Young and the Restless was just delicious to me.
You're like,
I was like, why is that guy in the Speedos like making me tingle?
Hey, cousin, are you feeling the same thing as me? No?
So it was really interesting, you know, but you know, growing up, the words were faggot and sissy, you know, and so I was like, well, I don't want to be a faggot or a sissy. So I never said anything about it. And at the same time, I was, I grew up in the church.
Yeah.
And in the church, you always heard the same things as well. You know, this is an abomination. You're going to hell.
So they
Sodom and Gomorrah.
They did talk about homosexuality in your church.
On a regular basis.
On a regular
basis.
Doesn't that say, like, doesn't it make you think, like, maybe the pastor was conflicted?
I was like, why are you constantly talking about it? But here's the thing, though. You know, they would talk about it, but the choir director was a queen.
Yes.
The lead singer of the choir was a queen.
Oh, were they out?
You know, no.
No,
well,
but you just knew.
No, but I was like, they carried purses.
I think that's
I was like,
clue number one.
Today we call them a man bag. But back then it was called a purse.
Still a purse.
It was a purse. You know? So I thought it was very interesting that they would always want to single out that individual or single out that group of people.
Right. That is really telling.
And it was the only thing that they ever really talked about the most in church. It was never about like divorced people. Right. It was never about women having babies out of wedlock. Right. It was always about homosexuality.
Right.
You know, so.
Yeah, that's really telling.
Yeah.
That they were having issues of their own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so I was like, okay. So at 10, I kept praying that this is not what I want to be. This is not what I want to be.
So you heard that message and thought.
I heard it.
And you heard it literally and was like, something's wrong with me.
God doesn't love me. I don't know what to do with this. And I would pray, God, take this away from me. This is not what you want me to be. Please take this away from me.
Yeah.
And I remember I would pray and cry myself to sleep at night. And then at 13, I can't remember exactly when it happened, but I remember one time when I was praying, I literally, and people, you know, they'll think this is crazy, you know, but I literally heard the voice of God said, I created you as a black gay man because I have work for you to do.
Wow.
And I had no idea what that meant.
Yes.
But I knew the voice enough and everything within my body was calm that I knew what I was hearing was truth.
It was like you were viscerally experiencing that message.
Yeah.
How extraordinary.
And from that point on, nothing anybody said affected me.
Oh my God, I fucking love that.
Yeah. It didn't affect me, you know, because I was like, no, that's not true.
No, I have gotten.
I got my message. And I was told, no, that's not true. You know, and even there were some things that, you know, if they were talking about that wasn't necessarily homosexuality related, if they would talk about something, I would say, you know what, I need to go to prayer on that one. And I would go home and I would pray about it. I was like, God, I'm going to read this scripture. Help me to understand. And I would read it and I'd be like, no, that's not what it says. You know, so I ended up from that point on, I had a different relationship with God that told me that I was okay.
God, that is so incredible.
Yeah. Now, I didn't come out still at that time.
Yes, you were still navigating socially.
For me, in my body, mind, and spirit, I knew that God loved me. And that's all that I really cared about.
I mean, that is so beautiful.
Yeah. I don't really care. Did God love me? That was important to me. Yeah.
Okay. So that is incredible. What a gift. Yeah. The divine was like, we have some stuff for him to do. So we need to get him straightened out with himself so he can feel good about who he is. And so then you're going through your life. You're still not sharing.
Not yet. Until about 18.
Yes.
That's when my mother and my aunt, I used to keep my journal. And 18 was when I started writing the journal. Yes. You know. And at 18, I had written in the journal about some sexual experiences I had
with men.
With men.
Yes.
One was with the professor I was working for, and just one day, like in my body, I started to feel things shift in my house. And this is what I mean when I say
the way people were interacting with you.
Yes. You know, like my aunt, she took me to school every day. And one day, and we would we would listen to the radio, and there was this DJ that would come on, and there was always this effeminate character that would come on. The DJ would play this effeminate character role, and we would laugh about it. And so the day before I had left my journal at home, and I didn't think anything about it. I was like, I left it on the dining room table. It's fine. But the next morning, we're driving to school, and my aunt's not laughing. The voice comes on. She's not. I'm laughing. She's not laughing.
You're like,
and under her breath, she's saying, "It makes me sick."
Oh,
you know. So that's what she's. And I was like,
something's going on.
Something's going on.
Yeah.
So also, I'm going to jump back because that the night before, as well, before she took me to school, the night before, my mother called, and my mother would always call, and my aunt would back then, you know, we only had landlines.
Yes.
So she had a landline in the bedroom, and she had a landline in the kitchen, and I lived with my aunt because I was going to school.
Yes.
And the night my mom called, and she said, Mary told me to call her, and I said, okay. And Mary said, I'm gonna take it in the bedroom. And I was like, And so when she got to the bedroom, and I was like, what are y'all talking about? And and she said, Keith, hang up the phone. And just the tone made me go,
Yeah.
Something's off.
Yeah.
And then the next morning, it was another, something's off.
Yes.
Something's off.
Yes.
And then later that day, at around 4 o'clock, I was working for the professor. And my mom called, and she said, I want to speak to Keith. And I said, hey, this is me. She said, Keith, this is your mom. And I said, oh, hey, Mom, how are you? I'm like, oh, cheering. Hey, Mom, how are you? And she goes, I need you to come home. And I said, oh, okay. Well, I get off at 5 o'clock. I should be home shortly after that. And she said, no, I need you to come home now. And she started crying. Oh. And that was the third confirmation. Yes. I knew what had happened.
Oh, so you knew.
I knew. Okay. And so I hung up the phone. I turned to the professor in his office and I said, I need to go home. He goes, is everything okay? I said, my mom and my aunt, they read my diary. And he said, how do you know that? I said, this is what's happened. Yeah. And now I got to go home and face this. Yeah. And that's how I came out. Yes. You know, I walked in the door and my mother it's in the book. Yes. You know, my mother was sitting on the couch and the stuff was on the dining room table, you know, an empty box, but everything else was torn up. Not in the box, but torn up. You mean in the box, you had more things like... No, and the box was empty. Oh, but what was in the box prior? Nothing. Oh, it was just, that was their way of ripping up everything that they were going to put in the box. Okay, got you. So instead of them ripping the stuff up and putting it in the box, there was a pile of garbage. Okay. On the table of everything that I owned that was gay related that they had torn to shreds. Oh. And the empty box next to it. So when I walked inside my mother, looked over the table and I saw the pile of stuff torn up, I was like, okay, this is it. Here we go. Here we go. You know, let's get ready to face this situation. And it didn't go well. Yeah. Because, you know, in the Black community, you know, it's called getting saved when you go to church, you know, and you give your life to Christ. Yes. You know, it's called you got saved. Okay. And my mother had gotten saved a month before that happened. Okay. So the only thing that she had at that point was her faith, her faith that she had. Right. So she was sitting on the couch with her hand on the Bible crying, you know, and and all I could say was, she said, the first word she said to me was, tell me what's going on. And I looked at her and I said, well, evidently you already know. Right. You know, I was like, evidently you already know what's happening. She goes, and then she was like, you're not gay. She goes, that church made you gay. Because I was going to MCC Church, which is Metropolitan Community Church. Okay. And Reverend Troy Perry started MCC churches so that gay Christians had a place to go to that was a safe space for their faith. That's beautiful. You know, and so MCC started in Los Angeles and then they grew all over the country and then all over the world. So Metropolitan Community Churches, you know, were everywhere. And I happened to go to one in Norfolk, you know, and in that church, I took a class on homosexuality in the Bible, and I learned how to read scripture that was in the Bible that was damning to homosexuals, but to understand the true meaning of how it was written, why it was written, who wrote it.
Right, because some of that stuff was added much later, like in the 60s or something.
Much later. Much later. Like they translated words and said, oh, well, this is what this word means.
Yes.
No, that's not what that word meant. That's not what that word meant.
Wow.
So it was a uncomfortable conversation. And at one point, as I talk about it in the book, is that, at one point I just felt like the conversation was getting to a place where the walls were closing in on me, and I was feeling suffocated. So I remember getting up and I opened the door and I just took off running. And my mom came in behind me. She was calling me, come back. And I just took off running. And I remember I probably ran for about a mile. About a mile. Yeah. And that voice of God, the same one that I heard when I was 13, said, stop running. You have dealt with this. You know who you are, and you know how much I love you. Oh my gosh. You can turn around and go back and face it.
Oh my gosh.
And so I turned around and I went a different route just in case they had gotten in a car or something. They were following me. Yes. So I walked back a different route, and when I got back close enough to my aunt's apartment building, I saw a police car. I was like, that can't be for me. That can't be for me. Oh gosh. Because it was parked right in front of my
you're like, why?
My aunt's apartment building. I was like, wasn't there before. So then when I come back and I open the door to her apartment, there's my mom, my aunt, a police officer. And I was like, and I remember opening the door going, are you kidding me? Yeah. You called the cops?
Because I'm gay?
You called the cops? And that's why the title in the book is called They Called the Cops. Yeah. And I was like, you called the cops? And when I walked in, the police officer was standing with my journal in his hand. Oh. And I knew, I was 18, so in the eyes of the law, I was an adult. There was nothing in the book that I had transpired with me or anybody that was younger than me or anybody had done anything to me prior to that was in the journal. Yes. So I was like, you can't take that. That's mine. You have to have a warrant in order to take my possession. They were like, your mother gave it to us. I said, but it's not hers to give. Yes. And they were like, good for you. They were like, well, we're taking it. So my gosh. So then the police officer then called a private investigator. And a private investigator, he showed up.
Oh my God. Let's all read this young man's diary.
Oh yeah. So that was December the 5th, 1990. Yes. I graduated high school in June, and this was happening in December. So December 5th, 1990. And I remember, they took the diary and they left. And then at all that day, it was 2 or 3 people against me. At one point it was my mom, my aunt, the police officer, the investigator. My mom, my aunt, my godmother. My mom, my aunt. My mom, my aunt, my godmother, my godfather. I mean, I always felt like I was by myself. I was on this long island by myself. And so they had said because my godfather got the card of the investigator. He ended up calling him and said, is there anything you can do with the journal? And the investigator said, no, there's nothing we can do with it. He can have it back. So that was December the 5th, 1990. Yes. I did not get the journal back in my possession until March 21st, 1991.
Oh my gosh.
So my joke, and I think I wrote this in the book too, my joke is that they took that journal and they passed it around in the police station because there was some good stuff in there.
They're like, that is super juicy.
Right,
you want to read this?
And I said some of them probably read it with one hand.
You know what I love though about what you were shared about how Spirit spoke to you and God spoke to you, and you got that real confirmation about who you are and what you're meant to do. It feels like that came in right on time for you to be able to handle these situations in a way that it didn't make them less difficult, But it just sounds like the way you responded to those situations was the most gracious you could possibly be for the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And there were, there were things that was happening during that. Like, at one point, my aunt, while the policemen and them were there, my aunt was washing the walls. Like, literally, she was washing the walls. Like I got to get this out of my house, type of thing.
Just don't know any better.
And and during that time, the AIDS crisis was happening, so people were dying of AIDS, and that's just like, at a time when a person should have the most love and support, especially if they come out as gay.
Yes.
Because a lot of what happened for a lot of people is that, it was a difficult time, and I was experiencing my difficult time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know that, as you share in the book, then you started to go out into the world, and then you ended up in the party scene.
Yes.
So how did that kind of transition from, did you leave your family home at that point after that experience?
No, so that was about 18 was when I was with my aunt. I stayed with my aunt for a while. I stayed with my godparents for a while in college. And then I ended up with my own apartment. And when I had my own apartment, I may have drank every now and then, not, too excessive. I've been drunk twice in my lifetime.
At that point.
Yeah. And then, and I really didn't do hard drug. It was like marijuana was the only thing that I was really smoking, Everybody was smoking pot. So I was like, that's what I was doing.
Yeah, it was the 90s.
Yeah, and so it wasn't until, and later in my adult life, into my 30s, that I moved to California. And I got introduced to my drug of choice, which was crystal meth.
Yes.
And I was very stupid and dumb, like ignorant.
Yeah, it just sounds like you didn't have a lot of experience with kind of the way,
because nobody in my family ever did hard drugs that I knew of. Right. I knew people smoked pot.
Yeah.
And I know people drank.
Right.
But I never saw, like, my grandfather drank a lot, but I never saw my grandfather drunk. Like, when we would go to Miss Sadie's house, he always, would drink, and she would be drinking. She may have had a little bit more to drink, but she was always so kind and so sweet. But he always drove home.
Yes, you didn't.
Because I was always with him.
Yeah, there was no party scene. There was no addiction scene for you to draw from.
I can't say that anybody in my family was addicted to anything.
Yeah, so you had nothing to reference when you were offered.
So when I got introduced to meth, I remember, as I talk about it in the book, the guy says, have you ever done Tina? And I was like, I thought he was talking about a girl.
You're like, I'm gay.
I was like,
why would I want to do?
I was like, no, I've never had sex with a girl before. And he was like, I mean crystal. And I was like I said,
also crystal.
I was like I said. And he says, no, I mean crystal meth. And I was like, oh. I said, well, no. And I mentioned this. I said, but I have a saying. I'll try anything once. And if it doesn't work for me and I don't like it, I won't do it again.
Right.
But I'll try anything once.
Yeah.
And so I remember trying it. And I remember. Now, at that point, in New York City, I had tried hardcore drugs such as like Special K or something. None of that worked for me.
Right.
So I never said that. I never said, that it was ever something I used. It was something I tried.
Yeah.
Didn't work for me.
Yeah.
But I remember the first hit of this drug, crystal meth, for me. And in 15 minutes, I was like, oh, I got it. I knew right away. I got it.
Yeah, you mean this is the high for me.
This is the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was it.
Yeah.
This was it.
Yeah.
And then I remember, how immediately the drug use and sex went hand in hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this guy took me to his house, and we partied all Friday night. And we got up on Saturday, and he took me home Saturday, and came back and got me Saturday night. And we partied all night, and then took me home on Sunday. And I went home, tried to get a little bit of rest before I went to church, because I was in church every Sunday night singing in the choir, even through this. And that is what people call a weekend warrior.
Yes.
You know, I was a weekend warrior.
Yeah.
You know, started on Friday, trying to wrap up on Sunday to get ready for work on Monday.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but it's still a cycle that's really takes a toll on you.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Because I was exhausted.
Yes.
You know, I mean, when you're up for 9, 12 hours, you know, and sometimes, and to be honest, you know, not even just 12 hours, because as much as I tried to pretend like I was trying to sleep, I really wasn't sleeping.
Right. Because you don't sleep on.
No, because you couldn't sleep, but it was such a stimulant. And, my life I started to see that my life changed.
Yeah. It became unmanageable.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. Like, I was lying to people.
Yeah.
I was lying to coworkers why I was so tired. I was lying to friends why I wasn't showing up for stuff, you know. And then, you know, I had an episode where I got really sick with a stomach flu after a weekend of partying while I was out of town for work. And I came home, and I had that prayer of, God, if you help me get through this. And I ended up calling a friend who I had partied with, who had told me a week before that he had gotten clean, and that he was going to meetings. Yeah. And I remember my prayer to God was, if I call my friend and he answers the phone, I'll go to a meeting.
I love those.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's what I did.
Yes.
I picked up the phone. I remember picking up the phone and dialing his number. I do not remember the phone ringing. I do remember him saying hello.
And you were like,
when he said hello, and I said, I need help. I need to go to a meeting.
God bless you.
And he took me to my first meeting. And then I got clean.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
I got clean right away and stayed clean for 5 years in California, moved back to Chicago, and white knuckled it for 2 years.
So what does that mean, white knuckled it?
White knuckled it means that when I came back to Chicago, I didn't think that people in Chicago and the recovery community liked me.
Okay.
So I was like, you know, because I was the guy from California now. You know, even though I lived here before I moved to California.
I know how it is.
You know,
I'm from here, and I lived in L.A.
Yeah.
In Chicago, and live in L.A. and you come back, and everyone's like, oh,
you're the California person, you know. So that's what my brain was telling me, that how people were acting towards you.
And you're speaking like for meetings and stuff like that for 12 steps.
Yeah. And so I didn't stay in meetings, and I didn't stay connected to people in the program. Yeah. So when I say white knuckle, it means I did it on my own. Yes. You know, I was like, I got 5 years. Yeah. I know what I'm doing. I got this on my own. Yes. You know, I'm good. I got this.
And then
one day, you know, the brain said, well, you know what? Wine was not your problem. Right. Alcohol was not your problem. Crystal meth was your problem. So you can have a glass of wine with dinner. And I was like, yeah, brain. So, and literally what I did, you know, when I would go out with friends for dinner who were not in the program, when I would go out with people to dinner, or I cooked dinner at home, I would have one glass of wine. That was it. Yep. And I would put it away. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, that one glass of wine turned into 2 glasses of wine, turned into 3 glasses of wine, turned into a bottle, turned into cocktails, turned into after dinner drinks. And then the mind said, well, you know what? Marijuana was really not your problem. As long as you don't pick up crystal meth, you're okay. Yeah. And so I started smoking pot after that. Yeah. And before you knew it, I was right back to my drug of choice. You had gotten back to meth. And this time...
how did that happen? So you're smoking pot, and it was at the same...
and was hooking up with people, and ended up hooking up with a person who said to me, do you like to party? And I was like, yeah, by that time I knew what party meant. Yeah. You know, because P&P was the terminology that was used, party and play. You know, and I was like, yeah. And they were like, okay. So I went to this person's house, and we started partying. And I got introduced right back to it. And I was smoking until this guy I was dating, he became a dealer, and I was smoking with him all the time. Oh. Then I started mixing G with it, you know, a whole different kind of high. And then I met another dealer that I hooked up with, and he was the one who introduced me to intravenously using. And that's meth? Yep. Yeah. And once that happened, there was no turning back. Yeah. How long did that stint? So when I relapsed after 7 years, I was out for 3 years. Okay. Yeah. So within the first year of relapsing and making the choice to drink and to smoke pot, you know, then to start smoking crystal meth again, it wasn't very long after that I was hooked on intravenously using, and that lasted for like 2 years. Yeah, they always say like when you relapse, it's even harder. Oh yeah, than before. I mean, harder like the way you're partying is partying even harder because you elevate it. Yeah, you know, you're. The words that we use in a meeting is that, you know, we're always chasing that high. Mm-hmm. And when I had that first hit intravenously, I was always chasing that. Yeah. It was never going to be anything else but that. My conversation with Keith was so incredible. I wanted to keep the whole thing. So, of course, you know, I will be doing it in 2 parts. So stay tuned for part 2 of my conversation with the incredible Keith Butler. As always, this has been the Spiritual Shitshow podcast. My name is Suzanne Sole. Thank you so fucking much for listening. And I will see you on the next one. Really, darling.